to your in-depth monthly horoscope for December 2023 for the Sun or the Ascendant. I'm going to give you a brief overview of what to expect, but please stay with me. I will explore, as usual, in much greater detail, all the ins and outs particularly relevant to your sign. Now, of course, December can be a very sociable month, but the movement on the 4th of Venus into your 5th house is a really spectacular opportunity. But also Mercury moves on the first day into your opposite sign, joining up with Pluto. Relationships, therefore, are going to come sharply into focus. But Mercury has been tracking through your 6th house, so as you come into this month, things may have been a little bit brittle, but it is going to go into a retrograde on the 13th, so I need to share all about that with you. Now we have the Cancer full moon on the 27th, so that's critical. It's also going to be forging a very important alliance to Jupiter and Saturn, so much to share with you. Please stay with me for more. Now, if you've yet to order your personal horoscope for year 2024, if you do so now, you can still get the rest of this year free. But also my special package, you'll get your character analysis report, your life roadmap, and 30% off, but also your year 2024 zodiac forecast for each of the 12 signs, but also Indian forecast for each of the 12 signs, and Chinese forecast for each of the 12 animal signs, totally free of charge, those booklets. Please see the link below for more. So Cancer, as you come into December, so the Sun and initially Mercury, but also Mars are all in house 6, which is a very practical part of our journey through the year. And in the sign of Sagittarius, it's asking us to think big, but apply in a very precise way. The 6th house has a kind of bit of a Virgo echo to it. So if you're grappling with the last minute details in terms of the plans for the festivities, it wouldn't be a surprise. But as I mentioned, Mercury later on the 1st, goes into your sector of relating. And ever since the 25th of November, you may have found that some wires were getting a little bit crossed. So you have an opportunity, because of the pre-retrograde shadow, to try to work things out. And the best way to do that with Mercury in the 7th house is to sharpen up our listening skills. Now, I also mentioned to you about the 4th, Venus moving into Scorpio. Now, if you're really into your astrology, you'll know that Venus in Scorpio is debilitated, but for you, it's a wonderful placement. And right through to the 29th, this gives you the chance to enjoy the interaction with others. There could be some social encounters with people you work with. I know that can be true each year, that we may go out with people that we are associates with or colleagues, but I think there's a particular opportunity this year. But also on the 6th, Neptune ends a very long retrograde, which has lasted for 22.5 weeks. Now, Neptune's been in your 9th house a long time, since 2012. It's very much a spiritual dimension, and the 9th house can be about where we expand. You may have found over the last 158 days that your desire to open up your world, at times your idealism may have been crushed by the reality of what you experience, but hopefully things can flow a little bit easier. It's just that, to be really honest with you, pretty well from the new moon on the 12th, which is in that practical sign of Sagittarius and pretty close to Mars, which can strengthen your physical energy and your stamina, always important at this time of year. But Neptune is squaring up with that particular event. It's a bit broader. The event itself actually forges a terrific link to the North Node. So if you are applying for a job or trying to reorder your professional affairs, this can be helpful. But what Neptune can do is any information you're receiving needs to be carefully analysed, the sixth house, to make sure that something isn't out of kilter or you're not misled in some way, even if inadvertently. That potential for confusion increases on the 13th when Mercury goes retrograde. Now, Mercury retrograde, as you are likely aware, can cause some glitches, but it can cause some or create some opportunities. The seventh house is where we relate to people. Are you going to have a meet-up with someone you haven't seen or heard from for many a moon? That's possible. But equally, there could be those cross wires that I mentioned before. So it will be important to try to work at things, because Neptune squares up with the Sun between the 13th and the 19th, but also later in the month it's also going to be very important then in terms of potentially eroding the more practical side of life. So with Mercury retrograde as well, any arrangements that are made, for example, just double check that the other side has the same understanding as you. But I mentioned that Venus can be very sociable for you, and from the 18th to the 23rd it goes opposite Uranus. If you are single, there could be a sizzling connection. Are you going to be hooking up with someone under the mistletoe? Well, of course, it depends on your approach, where you are in your life. If you're looking for something that's much more profound, then maybe the opposition between these two can connect you to someone who does understand you at a bit more of a soul level, and the Uranus energy means that there's an authenticness about this person which really attracts you. But it could be that you just have a jolly good time with like-minded folks. Now, in an existing relationship, you either are going to be more sparky with one another in a way which can actually reignite the pash, or it could see you at opposite ends of the settee, particularly if one of you wants to socialise outside of the relationship with other people. But that brings us to the 22nd, the winter solstice, and the Sun catches up with Mercury and Pluto and moves into Capricorn. Now, this is a very important event in Western tropical astrology. It ushers in the fourth and final cardinal quadrant, lasting 13 weeks through to the time of the spring equinox and the start of the astrological new year. The sign of Capricorn is very much to do with our physical culmination, so it's our role in life in general, and can be to do with responsibilities, leadership, can also be to do with success and goals. But for you, because it's in the seventh house, I feel that what you're wanting to achieve over the next quarter of the year is really an improvement around relationship matters. But on the 23rd, ironically, Mercury in its retrograde inverses back into that potentially brittle position in Sagittarius. And the reason why it can be a bit tricky is that Mercury in Sagittarius is not its best location, it's detrimented, but the sixth house is details. Now, usually you're an absolute ace when it comes to managing things and arranging all those little touches that are so important to everyone having a good time at Christmas. So just be aware that maybe something that you can't completely control could in some ways be a niggle. But also on Christmas Day itself, I hope you have a great day. If you are on your own, do know I will be thinking of you. The moon's actually in a very delicate location and it's in a square with Neptune. Feelings could be running high. You could feel very sentimental. If you're not with someone that you really want to be with, perhaps someone who's sadly passed over, or perhaps someone you used to be with romantically, or due to family situation or politics, that could really stir up quite a lot of nostalgia. But also on the 27th, the full moon in your sign actually links into both Jupiter and Saturn, which forge a gorgeous alliance the last 2 weeks of this month and into the first period of 2024. Now, Jupiter for you is in a very strong location. It's in your 11th house, very, very sociable. And Saturn's in your 9th house. If there are people that you're connected to, perhaps in a group situation, that you really, really feel a shared credo. You know, Jupiter can be about faith, especially in the ninth house. It can also be about travel, of course. And if there is someone you can travel with in terms of shared interests or a friendship that's getting stronger, this is an excellent full moon. But of course, at the end of the day, it is in your sign, and you could be feeling more emotional if you're not getting what you need around a relationship. So basically, it's very much to do with relationships. And Jupiter, of course, at this stage is still in retrograde. It goes direct on the 31st, but not before it forges a sensational angle to the Sun. So we have a trine that brings us to the end of this year, and we bring the celestial curtain down on year 2023. But also Venus moves into Sagittarius, flirty Sagittarius on the 29th. But I feel your diplomacy can be great for grappling with any arrangements that maybe have gone a little bit awry. Maybe someone's going to be a bit of a nitpicker, and you're the one who's going to have to rise above this and just steer things with your calm equanimity into some kind of order so everyone gets what they need for their festivities. But to be sure, as the year comes to a close, Neptune does square up to Mercury and Mars. So I wouldn't put yourself under too much pressure to take responsibility for others. If there is something where the wheels have come off a little bit, maybe at some part of it, although you can do your best, you may have to accept that people are not turning up for whatever reason, or they've got issues, but you're not wanting to get into them. So I feel that the important thing is with Neptune is not to disown the reality of whatever it is that is a bit out of kilter. And there could be quite a lot of nervous energy at the end of this year, but that actually can give you a lot of motivation. And if you are going to the winter sales, it could be some practical things that you're going to want to hunt down, things that in some way or another make life work more efficiently. You could also be thinking a lot when you set your New Year's resolutions about health, fitness and diet. Now, I know a lot of people do that every year, and usually by the second week of January, we're tucking in to those chocolates that are left over from Christmas and thinking, well, there's next year. I'll look at it then. And there could be that, but I feel that with Mercury and Mars so closely tethered together as the year comes to a close, you may surprise yourself by how much you do want to be virtuous as you burst into the new year. But I must tell you, Cancer, that link between the Sun in the 7th house of relating and Jupiter in the 11th house of groups and friendships does suggest that in 2024 you're going to forge some new alliances which are really going to be very uplifting to you. And there could be one person, not necessarily romantically, who's going to be very much at the centre of this. I'd like to wish you a very happy Christmas and New Year. Take care, and please do like, share, comment or subscribe.